Welcome, Final Fantasy fans, to a very special video. We are going to be ranking the Final Fantasy logos, from my least favorite to my favorite, although I'm going to say right now, I love them all. I think they are some of the most iconic imagery in all of video games. Yoshitaka Amano's artwork is glorious, but I'm going to rank them anyway, and yeah, this is a weird video, but I mean, there's rankings of top 10 anime bears on YouTube, so please just indulge me, okay? Oh, and before we begin, I'm not going to be ranking every single game's logo. I'm only going to worry about 1 through 16, and I'm also only going to pick the my favorite logos from each game, because some games in this series have had a number of different logos. I'm going to pick the one that I think is the best out of the bunch, and we are going to rank that one. So spin-offs and sequels are not going to be included in this list because I would be here forever. There have been so many. So just clarifying before we begin, don't expect to see Final Fantasy Tactics logo in here, even though it is very good, or Final Fantasy X-2, 13-2, they are not going to be on the list. So, starting off the list, at number 16, is, funnily enough, my favorite Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy IX. It does have probably my least favorite logo of the main numbered series, purely because there's really not much to it. It's very fitting with the story, showing a crystal, very Final Fantasy, which ties into Final Fantasy IX, going back to the series' roots. However, apart from the coloring, which is nice, there's not much to say about it, so we're gonna move on. At number 15, we have Final Fantasy II. I'm going with the logo that was done for the Final Fantasy Origins release of this game. There is a PSP logo that's a little bit different, and obviously the original logo is very different, but I think this one's my favorite. However, again, there's not really much to say about it. It shows the baddie of the game, Emperor Mateus, or whatever his name is. It's very pink, so maybe that's why I don't like it as much, because it is super pink. But, I don't know, it's very nice artwork, but it doesn't really scream at me like some of the later ones do, so, yeah, that is our number 15 pick. At number 14, we have the very first Final Fantasy, although this was definitely not the original logo of the game. Again, I'm going for the Final Fantasy Origins edition, the PS1 logo that was done. Maybe I like this because it was the first logo I ever saw of Final Fantasy 1, so it's got a special place in my heart. I really like the blues and the sword going over the text. I think that's kind of cool. Isn't it cool? I think it's cool. But anyway, the Warrior of Light, very striking image, and he looks pretty badass. So that is my number 14 pick. Next we have Final Fantasy VIII with Squall and Rinoa hugging. It's so romantic, isn't it? Yeah, I think Final Fantasy VIII is definitely one of the most divisive games in the series. I personally love it, but I can totally understand people not liking this one. I think the reason this logo is not my favorite, it's definitely lower on my list, I think because of the Rinoa-Squall relationship. I've never really bought into it. It seems really forced, to me anyway, so this is why I'm not the biggest fan of this logo, even though I kind of like the coloring and the sweeping below the text. You know, they're embracing, it's all lovey-dovey and romantic, so some people probably love this logo way more than I do, but that's my opinion, so that is why it is at number 13 on the list. At number 12, we have Final Fantasy III, the logo that was released when the game was finally released in the West. We didn't see Final Fantasy III for a very long time. This is the logo that I most associate with it. The original logo is kind of horrendous in my opinion. I can barely read the damn thing. So I like this. It's more, you know, in line with the rest of the series. And it's pretty cool, you know, you got the... I think it's supposed to be the Onion Knight. Or maybe just a nameless warrior. Dual-wielding swords, cape, really really freaking cool, but probably the reason it's lower on my list is because it doesn't really have that much story significance. My favorite Final Fantasy logos, usually the logo ties in with the story really nicely, so that's why it's a little bit lower down, but I think it looks really nice and the coloring kind of fits with some of the themes of the game. So here we go, Final Fantasy III, you are at number 12. Next up, we have everyone's favorite Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy XIII. Yay! No, to be honest, I really like 13 a lot more than most people seem to do. The logo especially is fantastic. It has incredible significance with the story of the game, particularly the ending, so I'm not going to spoil it, but it shows the world of Cocoon, some main characters in there as well, Vanille, Fang. Really, really nice. And I don't know, I'm kind of a sucker for some of the turquoisey colours as well. It's quite a busy logo, there's a lot going on, which sometimes can be a bit much, but I think there's a nice balance with this one. So, Final Fantasy XIII, love it or hate it, I think the logo is still phenomenal. Heading into the top 10 now, we have Final Fantasy IV. Now, this was the first instance of this kind of logo in the series, and for that reason, I absolutely adore it. It's kind of bare bones, showing Kain, who actually is probably my favorite character in the game, so maybe I'm a little bit biased. Love the purples, and Dragoons just look really fucking cool. I'm sorry, they do. I like his pose. I probably prefer this to the DS logo that was made, which featured Golbez, the villain. A very good logo in its own right, a very big logo, but I kind of prefer this original one. So yeah, that gets my pick for number 10. At number 9, we have my very first Final Fantasy, my friends, Final Fantasy X. It will always have a very special place in my heart. Something about this logo grabbed me when I saw it on the shelf in Toys R Us, and I never looked back. It is incredible, definitely has strong story elements to it, depicting Yuna on the left there, performing the sending at Kilika, and just the blue and yellow I always associate with blue being Yuna, yellow being Tidus, and also it kind of looks like waves to me, which water, the ocean, is a very big part of the game, so I don't know whether that was intentional or not. I just really freaking like it, and yeah, that gets my number 9 spot. Next up, we have a game that kind of changed the series in a lot of ways. The first Final Fantasy MMO, Final Fantasy XI Online. The logo really symbolizes that this is a complete shift in what you're used to. Now you team up with thousands of players, hence the huge freaking army in the logo. All those adventurers teaming up together to fight the evils of the world and save the planet. So nice. I love what this logo stands for, and yeah, it's really nice looking as well. Very busy, again, there's a lot going on, a lot of detail, but it never gets overwhelming, and I think it just really encapsulates what Final Fantasy XI was all about so well. At number 7, we have Final Fantasy VII. What else can be said about this game? It's phenomenal. It changed the landscape of JRPGs, especially in the West, and the series has never really looked back. Also, can't really escape this game's shadow for some reason, hence the remake, which was fantastic, in my opinion. But the logo itself, huge importance with the story. Meteor, love the dark greens. I think that really fits with the game's atmosphere. When I see this logo, I think of Midgar, dark, dingy, steampunk, and it's gotta be the most instantly recognizable logo in the whole series. It really does. So it is number 7 on my list. At number 6, we have the second MMO in the series, the slightly terrible Final Fantasy XIV, which is now an incredible game with a Realm Reborn. However, I'm going for the original logo for the first release, 1.0. I love this logo so much that it kind of inspired me when I designed my own. I love all the weapons sticking out. Again, it shows numerous adventurers teaming up, and yeah, as much as the game kind of sucked, it is incredible now. They've kind of taken this logo and recolored it for a Realm Reborn. Please give it a try if you're into MMOs or you're curious. It is a phenomenal game, but the logo itself, I adore. And I think I prefer this version with, it's just more colourful. And yeah, again, it really did inspire me when it came to my own crappy logo. Okay, we're breaking into the top 5 now, chaps. Here we go. Final Fantasy VI. A lot of people's favourite game in the series, for good reason. It is incredible. I cannot praise this game enough, but the logo, dude, is there anything cooler than Magitech armor? I don't think so. And just the little details. I always like the logos where the image is kind of interacting with the text, overlapping with it. You got the foot going through the bottom of the A there, the head peeking over the top of it. I really like it. The dark reds, also a big fan. And again, it's kind of a small logo. There's not it's not too overbearing, but it does the job. And yeah, Magitech armor is awesome all day long, every day. At number 4, we have Final Fantasy XV. Originally, this was of course going to be Final Fantasy Versus 13, so it would have been a spin-off, and it would not have been on this list. However, I'm glad it is, because the logo is insanely cool. I love me some long flowing capes. The dark color scheme really fits the game, because it's a much more grounded fantasy. Especially the characters, they all wear black, for God's sake. And I will say this, there are actually 2 versions of this logo. I'm not going to show the second one because its story significance, when I saw it appear on screen at the end of the game, oh my god, I had chills. It's one of my favorite endings to any Final Fantasy ever. It had my favorite villain of the whole series. And yeah, a lot of people were disappointed with this one, especially I think it was very ambitious and with all its development problems. I'm surprised it turned out as good as it did. I adore this game, and the logo, absolutely gorgeous. Alrighty, we're into the top 3, everyone. This is the serious business end of the list. And at number 3, we have the latest logo in the series, Final Fantasy XVI. I cannot wait for this game. The logo is incredible. Obviously, I don't really know too much about the story of the game yet, no one does, but it seems to be Phoenix, Ifrit, fighting it out. They are going to be incredibly crucial to the story, I'm sure, but as to what end, we don't really know. I think it looks stunning. I also really like the on black version of this with the white text, that's also really nice. But my god, how pretty is that? The wings of Phoenix and just the hair of Ifrit, the horns, the tail, oh my god, it's also one of the only logos that really covers a lot of the Final Fantasy text itself, which I'm actually okay with. I think it looks really good. So yeah, cannot wait to hear more about that game this year, hopefully. And at number 2, we are going all the way back to Final Fantasy V. Dragons. That's all I can say. Dragons, the tail going around the A, love it. The dragon itself is quite important to the story. Not hugely important, but definitely a factor. So yeah, love it. Also, the color scheme, probably my favorite out of all the logos. I love me some purples and blues. So yeah, this wins big for me, and Final Fantasy V is the only game in the series currently that I have not actually finished. So yeah, I need to get on that, but my god, love the logo. Really, really, really badass looking dragon. Oh my god. And here we are, my friends, the number 1 spot. You know what it is. Final Fantasy XII has my favorite logo in the series. Just look at it. It's huge for one thing. It is absolutely massive. It towers over the game's title. Gabranth, front and center, one of my favorite characters in the game. He is the Darth Vader of the Final Fantasy series. So cool, so badass. I know I've said that word a million times during this video, but it's true. There's so many great images here, and this one takes the cake for me. The cape, the dual-wielding weapons. He just looks so imposing, and just the size of him. I mean, holy shit. Honestly, so good. And I'm glad Final Fantasy XII nowadays is getting more love. I think it's much more accepted now as a great game than it was when it first came out. I think because it was so different to the previous ones, it didn't really get a lot of attention or love back in the day, but that's definitely changing. I can't be more happy. Final Fantasy XII is a fantastic game, but the logo gets my #1 spot. So there we have it. That was my ranking the Final Fantasy game logos. I hope you enjoyed this. I know it's a bit of a weird video. I don't know if many people have done this, but I've been wanting to do it for so long. I love these logos. They are part of my childhood. I don't think the series would be where it is now if it weren't for this artwork. I really don't. I think it's so striking, so recognizable, and I think it deserves more love than it gets. So this was my little love letter to the artwork of Final Fantasy's logos. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know. What do you think? Did you enjoy this video? Was it kind of pointless? I don't know. I enjoyed making it anyway. And I'd love to know what your rankings are. What are your favorite logos in the series? Especially not just in the games that I've ranked here, the spin-offs. I'd love to know. Please do comment and maybe share this video with any Final Fantasy fans you know. I would really appreciate it, especially if you liked the video as well, if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, everyone. Please do take care, and I will see you in the next one, whatever ranking video I decide to do next.